All right, welcome back, teachers. I'm so excited to see all of you and get ready for the year. We're talking pre-assessments today, and the why you might use pre-assessments and the how, or what would you do with that information. So to start, I have a couple reflection questions for you, and I'm going to set a timer. The first is, when I've used pre-assessments in the past, they were helpful or effective. Why and why not? And then if I haven't used pre-assessments, why not? Okay, I'm going to start the timer. You've got about 30 seconds. All right. Now that you've thought about your experience with pre-assessments, let's talk about some different purposes or why a teacher might pre-assess. One would be to assess prerequisite skills. So what are the skills that a student needs in order to be prepared to meet the grade level standard? The next is present. So where a student is at right now. That's where you might use like a KWL chart or have them reflect, what's everything you know about the Civil War? Just what do they currently have knowledge about? And then preview is the one that's most tied to like a pre-test, post-test mindset, where you're going to assess them at the beginning on the skills that you want to see at the end. And so the goal is to see that growth. We're going to talk specifically about the prerequisite skills. Regardless of what form you use, I think it's really important to keep the purpose, why you would pre-assess, in mind. Evidence shows they can be beneficial, but only when the teacher does something with that information. So when you collect that information, how might you have to adjust your instruction based on how those kids did? And the frustrating part is you don't know until they actually take that pre-assessment, right? Or you know what information they know or don't know. So the first step when you're looking at creating pre-assessments and then using them is to understand. So what that means is look at the essential standards or learning targets that are coming up. Usually you'll do the pre-assessment in the first week, or I've done it like towards the end of the previous unit. That way I have a little bit of time to plan or the launch into the beginning of the next unit. And you want to identify those prerequisite skills or knowledge that students would need to access that content. So really, that's part of the unpacking process of essential standards, is looking at what students would need to know in order to be successful in that standard. The next step is to diagnose. So look at how you might collect that information. How many of those students have the prerequisite skills? So the go-to is usually the pretest, right? Think creatively here. Some other ways you could do is concept map, journaling. You could have students self-assessed, look at writing prompts. You could use pre-formulated data from the MAP or ISASP. You could use a game or an activity. So these can be short, they can be long. It's completely up to you and dependent on what those prereq skills are. And from that, you want to look at the results. And what the results would tell you is if you need to address it as a whole class or as a small group. And so that leads us to the third step, is taking action. What are you going to do with that information now that you've looked at it? The threshold is typically 80%, and that comes from the MTSS, multi-tiered system of support. So if 80% of your students have that skill, then you really just need to do small group with the 20% that don't. But if you have like 75% or 50% of the kids that don't have that prereq skill, then you need to do it with the whole class. So you look at how you might adjust your pacing guide, build in lessons. If it's just the 20%, then you're going to do that differentiated instruction. All right. Thank you.